Similar to the Granger test, the vector autoregression method also has its assumptions and limitations. First of all, unfortunately, this model is not suited for policy analysis. So if at some point you would need to analyze some policy implemented by the government or the central bank, unfortunately, you cannot use this tool. This tool is, let's say, only good for predicting the future values of some economic variables. And similar to the Granger test, the biggest practical challenge is to choose the appropriate leg length. I already mentioned that we have some tools, econometric tools, which allow us to do this, which is Akaike information criterion or Schwarz information criterion. But again, the choice of the appropriate leg length is very crucial for the causality analysis. Similar to the Granger test, the variables must be stationary. So if it happens that your variables are non-stationary, please apply some tools from the previous lecture to make them stationary. So either use first differences or the trend procedure. And another challenge of this model is that the individual coefficients, the estimated coefficients, are often difficult to interpret. However, luckily we have another tool, which is called impulse response function, which allows us to analyze the vector autoregression model in much more details without going into the analysis of individual coefficients. Impulse response functions, they show us the response of the dependent variable in the vector autoregression system to shocks in the error terms. For example, let's say we have some shock U1 and it happens in the M1 equation, and this shock leads to the increase of the money supply, let's say by a value of 1 standard deviation. Such a shock will obviously change the money supply in the current as well as in the future periods. And we know that also the money supply is a part of the interest rate regression. So the change in the error term will not only increase the money supply, but it will also have an impact on the interest rate. So impulse response function, this is actually a graphical tool. And the most softwares have the possibility to make those functions, and they're actually quite interesting for the analysis. So my recommendation to you, actually, instead of analyzing the estimated coefficients from the regressions, it's always better to make impulse response functions and analyze them.